guys go ahead.
We'll start with you, Lindsay.
Hey, Sean, any update on Darrell Henderson?
Yeah, so he has a little rib cartilage injury. We're going to be smart with him in the early parts of the week, but the hope and the optimism is that we'll see how he feels on Friday and being ready to go.
And then looking ahead, obviously, to Sunday, how do you view the opportunity to play the defending Super Bowl champions in week 3?
I feel like we know it's a great challenge just from playing them last year, but it's our third game, and it's an important game because it's our next game. Obviously they've been playing incredible football for their first 2 games this year. They finished, on an amazing streak, but really we're going to be worried about doing a great job with our process and getting ready to try to do everything we can to come away with the result that we want.
Thanks.
Jordan.
Hey, Sean, just sort of a follow-up to the question I asked you yesterday about some of the maybe the air yards explosives, some of the chunk plays that they were able to get on you guys yesterday. When you went back and watched, what did you think were some of the symptoms of that?
Yeah, I think the one that we talked about, we just kind of didn't play one of our zone principles the way that we want, that ended up leading to one of the explosives with Doyle. And then the other one, when they ended up hitting kind of a similar concept to what we hit Cup on the previous week, it was just kind of it's a great play by Wentz being able to make that throw. I thought, Nick Scott did a nice job squeezing, and Fuller just kind of got a little bit, not in the standard position, but I thought they made a good play. Those were the ones, and then some of those were just run after catches, but those 2 plays in particular, thought the 1 3rd and long conversion was, a nice job by them executing, and we can really play it better, but it was kind of a contested. We were in position. They just, ended up making a nice catch. And then the other one, we got a similar concept that we played very well, and it led to a turnover later on in the game.
So obviously understanding a couple of things. It's week 2, so I don't think anyone's going to want to overreact or anything like that. And then also understanding sort of the philosophical principles of this defense in terms of the allowance of certain things to dictate what you guys want to do in terms of coverage and things like that. At what point, and sort of what's that balance that you strike between the amount of that yardage that's allowed, or that maybe that cushion, or playing from the types of depth that you guys play from, versus that being too much of a bend, quote unquote, so you guys are backed up against it constantly?
Yeah, I think it's continuing to just monitor it. It is a clear-cut philosophy, but then there's also some change-ups. I mean, you look at some of the times that we sent some more guys forward on some first downs that led to a sack. So I think it's a balance, Jordan, and then figuring out, all right, how much do we want to be reactionary as a result of, all right, this is the approach that they're going to take. I think what's definitely been illustrated, particularly in the red area the last 2 weeks, is having 4 drives that come away with no points, where we got 2 turnovers, 2 4th down stops. That's a real credit to our guys, but it's definitely something that, you're spending a lot of time really talking through the philosophical approaches, but also making sure that we're doing what's best to be able to win the football games. And it is a balance. And I think Raheem's done a really nice job these first 2 weeks. And then those plays that you alluded to are ones where you say, all right, that's a good play, but we do have some ways that we can execute that at a higher level and be kind of process driven, as opposed to, being too worried about, all right, well, why did this actually occur? Is there a solution to be had? Can we play it better? And then are we going to be more consistently getting the results that we desire? And I think that's how we feel, but you got to give them credit too. They had a couple nice designs.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Gary.
Hey, Sean, a couple of them. First of all, just some clarity on Darrell Henderson. So he may not practice until Friday, and if you're going to make that determination at that point whether he start or not, or what's kind of that process?
Do you think that's not a good approach, Gary? Because the way that you asked me that question, you seem very judgmental to me.
Well, I think we're all just trying to get a sense of whether that injury is something that would have you start Sony Michel instead of Darrell.
Well, that would have been a better way of asking the question then, wouldn't
okay.
it? Well, I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. No, so the answer is yes. We want to give him as much time as possible to get as healthy as possible. This is something that if the pain subsides, then we will be confident to be able to utilize him. Does that mean he starts and plays the amount of reps? I think what yesterday was a good positive reflection of, Gary, was that Sony got into the rhythm of a game got a handful of carries. That was good for me to see. That was good for our players to see. And I thought he did a nice job closing it out. So you can definitely expect to see Sony and Jake possibly utilized more this week. We're hopeful and optimistic that we'll get Darrell back, but that'll be something that we'll monitor throughout the course of the week. But we've got to take the approach that those guys have to get ready to carry the load. And if Darrell can go, then that's a positive for us.
Okay. How concerned are you about the special teams situation at this point?
I think there's been some situations that we want back, a couple coverage opportunities in the kickoff game that I think are correctable issues. And then we had the one punt mistake yesterday, but all of those things, the thing that gives me peace is I have total trust in Joe DeCamillis and Dwayne Stukes, like I mentioned yesterday, and they're correctable issues. I don't think it's a personnel thing. I don't think it's a scheme thing. I think it's an execution. And sometimes those snaps are so limited, especially on special teams where you talk about it's one down and it's all everything right here. They do a nice job with Indianapolis, but those are things yesterday that occurred where got to tackle better on the kickoff coverage. We had him kind of pinned to where we wanted to, and he did a nice job making a return. And then it's a simple, just a little elementary area that, hey, we make a mistake where we could slide over a little bit more when we shifted for protection purposes. The snap hits them and it results in a touchdown, which feels like a terrible thing, but I think it is something that we can correct. So in a long-winded way, I'm not concerned, but there has got to be a sense of urgency that has consistently existed. It's not like anything's going to change, but we want to be intentional about addressing those things, correcting them, being solution-oriented, and then moving forward accordingly. But we need to be better. There's no doubt about it.
And finally, a two-part question. What's going on with Deshaun Jackson? Only played 3 snaps yesterday. And how would you evaluate how Robert Woods is doing so far this season?
Yeah. So really, first of all, Robert's a great competitor. He's going to continue to maximize those things. Want to make sure that I'm doing a good job of trying to get him more opportunities. But, these games, however I say it, is whatever's going to be an excuse. Robert's a great competitor. He's done a good job. I need to be able to get him more involved. He's a good playmaker. And the same goes for Deshaun. I got to figure out a better way to get him involved. He's too good of a player. We brought him here to impact and influence the game. And that's something that's going to be, reflected moving forward. And really, there's nothing that Deshaun didn't do. I just got to find out. I got to figure out a better way of getting him involved in a rotation so that he can affect and influence the outcome of the game. And that's what you'll see moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Claudia.
Hey, Sean. First of all, congrats on the win.
Thank you.
We've seen what Cooper Kupp has been doing. Obviously, he had a great game again. Are you hoping to see the other receivers get more catches and yards?
Yeah, I think, Cooper's done a great job maximizing his opportunities. What Matthew's done a really good job of is getting the ball where the coverage dictates. And there's certain times where you might be calling some plays with Robert or Van or Higbee or our backs being a primary, and it hasn't always gone there. Cooper has maximized his opportunities, but I think one of the benefits of our offense is the ball gets spread around. We've got a lot of guys that can make plays. And so that's definitely something that we're going to look to do, is making sure that, hey, we get everybody involved. We utilize their skill sets accordingly, but certainly Cooper has demonstrated why he's a special player in this league the last couple of weeks. I've been pleased with that.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Nick.
Hey, Coach. You talked earlier about hopefully Henderson will be available for you on Sunday, but in the event he will not be. Have you guys pretty much been able to start to map out how many carries Jake Funk could potentially have against the Tampa Bay defense, along with Sony Michel?
You know what, Nick? As soon as this call ends is usually when I kind of dive into the early parts of the preparation for the Bucs. So I haven't gotten that far yet, but that is something that we have to be mindful of. But I know that this is a great defense. They've been especially stout against the run the last few years under Coach Bowles' leadership and guidance, and so those will be things that we'll look at, but haven't gotten that far yet.
Also, how impressed were you with Sony Michel's performance yesterday, with him getting ingratiated in the offense the way he did, and performing the way he did? I
thought he did a nice job, Nick. I thought when we had to run the football and some of those key drives, especially on the 4-play response to retake the lead, I thought he had a really good run versus a fire zone pressure. And then when we got the ball back, when it's a 24-24 game, and how much we leaned on him, and he was able to churn out a bunch of good yards. And even in some of the 4-minute situations where you're running into heavy box counts, thought he was strong. I thought he got better as he got more carries. We were kind of getting into the flow of a game, which is always a challenging thing for those skill players as they're rotating. But you can see this is a guy that's been in a lot of big time games, Nick. And I thought Sony, did a really ingratiated himself. That's a good word. Yes. He did a nice job with that, yesterday. And I was pleased with Sony for sure.
Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome.
Kevin,
Sean, I wondered about some of the other injuries. Justin Lawler, and then is there anything upcoming with the two guys on short-term IR, and then Chris Garrett?
Yeah. So with Lawler, he's having hand surgery today, but he might be able to play this week. So he is a guy that we flexed him up, from our practice squad each of the last 2 weeks. But he's going to have surgery today on that hand, and he'll be able to play if pain subsides with the cast moving forward, if that's the direction that we go with our 48 on game day. Chris Garrett will be potentially cleared to return for COVID IR this week. And then Obo and Tremaine Ankrum will be able to return after the third game, which obviously is this next one.
Right. And then any ramifications from the Kenny Young thing? Is there a chance of suspension, fine? Do you know?
I'm waiting to hear the final word on that. I'm optimistic that he won't have to miss this game. And so that's the hope. That's the direction that I get the sense it's going, but I have not gotten 100% clarity on that quite yet. And I might, if I look at my email or if I go talk to, maybe Les has talked to the league since, but I haven't had a chance to find out for sure, but I think it's trending in a positive direction for us.
Thank you.
Haley,
Hey, Sean, just in your experience going up against Todd Bowles' defense, I guess, what is it that makes his system so challenging, I guess, as an offensive play caller?
Yeah, I think, he's always applying pressure to you. He doesn't let the offense dictate the terms. They're a physical outfit. They challenge you. He's got a variety of blitzes. But then I also thought, especially in their Super Bowl run, of being able to shift their identity and be able to play, a little bit more coverage oriented, keep the ball in front of him. So he's got great agility, which is what all great coaches have. I was really impressed with him, but it's always been a problem. I have a ton of respect for the multiplicity of looks that he can present, the aggressiveness at which he calls a game, but also is able to adjust and adapt within the course of a game or based on that game plan to put his guys in the right spots. But his defense has always played tough. They're physical, they're sound, and I think that's a great compliment to him.
And then last year when you guys faced Brady and the Bucs, that was week 12, I believe. I guess, how far along do you think has Brady come just as far as his comfort level in the system in comparison to where you guys played him last year, if you've had any chance to see him at all this year?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it to say I've really dove into the tape, to give you a true educated answer. I mean, you can see the way he's playing. There's a great understanding. He's playing fast. He's decisive. He's throwing the ball as well as he's ever thrown it. And he's obviously, one of the best of all time, if not the best of all time. So he's got great skill players. He knows how to distribute the ball. You can see they're really firing on all cylinders in all three phases. And that's why, they played so well. Really, when you look at it, after we played them, then they lost to Kansas City, and then they have not lost since that game. So it's been a long time, and that's why it's going to be such a great challenge. And Tom's playing as good a ball as he's ever played.
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
all right, we're wrapping up with Jordan.
Hey, Sean, again, I might phrase this incorrectly, but when you guys start 2-0 like this, but also you have probably a list a mile long of things you want to fix and also things you want to expand in terms of what you want to do with your offense and certainly what you want to do with your defense as well. How do you balance the daily and the weekly with the big picture in that regard, understanding that you just want to rush and get everything right now, but knowing it won't work that way?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I don't know if I have the exact right answer. I think the biggest thing is allocating the appropriate time, and then also understanding, all right, how do we make sure that our identity comes to life while also taking into consideration how we match up with the opponent week in and week out. And so it's making sure that there's ongoing communication with your coaches. What do we really want it to look like identity wise? What are the things from the first 2 weeks that we want to continue to embody and see illustrated and improved upon And then what are the things that maybe we want to shift that narrative a little bit or that we haven't done? And are there answers within the solution, within the scheme, to have those solutions like we talked about? And so I think it's being committed to the rhythm that we already have while also understanding that, hey, it's a long season. You got to be intentional about breaking up the way that you implement a game plan. And then you're clearly communicating to the players what you want it to look like. And that's by showing them on film. That's by creating those visions and having that clarity, because they're the ones that make it come to life. I think there was a couple plays yesterday, both offensively and defensively, that stand out where we had an intent behind them. And when the players own the intent, they can make it that much better because, oh, hey, this is the look that we had talked about. Here's the intent. So here's how I can make this play look even better than what the design of it was. Or here's how I can execute this pressure based on what the design of it was and who we're trying to get isolated or what we're trying to take away. And so I think it's just continuing to have more situations present itself like that. And then part of it too is saying, okay, if we're trying to stop this opponent, what are the keys to victory? This is what it takes in the rundowns or in the pass downs, in the red zone, on third downs, and vice versa for the offense. And so it is ongoing, but it's always much easier to be able to correct when you find a way to get the results you want. But like you said, there's numerous amounts of things that we have to improve upon. You can't go from A to Z, but I do think you want to take those incremental steps that are reflective of, all right, this is what's going to get us beaten. If we don't fix it, we're going to have problems. And then here's a reason why we're winning, and being able to find that delicate balance between both of those. I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's a good one that takes a lot of thought for sure.
Yeah, because I think after week 3, that really tough, hard fought loss to Buffalo last year, on defense specifically, you guys started to dictate, not necessarily you already had the personnel to do that, but with the scheme itself, right? And you mentioned your quote the other day in the press conference made me think about it, because you said you wanted to kind of choke offenses out, and I take that as like forcing shorter downs and things like that.
Sure.
Was there like a sea change, a landmark moment in that regard? Or how do you know when, as a coach, it's time to start pressing down on that particular phase of it, knowing that the guys can handle that sort of expansion?
Yeah, I think it's getting a feel for your team. Every single year is a new year. And it's like, okay, ultimately my job is to figure out how do we put all 3 phases together, and what does the identity of each of those phases look like to collectively establish the approach that we want to win games. And that narrative might be different based on the opponent. How we put together a plan in all 3 phases to beat the Colts and to try to beat the Bears is going to be different than what we put together against the Bucs based on their strengths, the things that we feel like we can take advantage of. That's not exclusive to scheme, but there's a lot of personnel that's involved in that as well. And so I think there's other things offensively. All right, what are the best ways to maximize Matthew Stafford's skill set? I'm still learning that. What's the best advantage and best ways to take advantage of when we give Sony Michel the ball? I just, for the first time, saw him carry the football in meaningful games. How can I do a better job, like Gary asked about, of getting Deshaun Jackson more involved? Those are the things that you think through, and it always starts with the players. Then it's the scheme and that approach. And so finding that balance is a great challenge, but it is something that I think is a progressive build. And you hit on it. You hit it right on the head. I thought the Bills game represented a great opportunity for our guys to kind of rally together. There was still a lot of good things that happened defensively, but then we really responded the right way, went on a run, and I thought that momentum carried us, and that was definitely the strength of our team last year, without a doubt.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.